PBS NewsHour did a piece covering the whole situation with the racist group chat that was exposed. I guess you can say leaked, although they didn't really release transcripts of the whole group chat from what I could tell. But yeah, PBS NewsHour ran a segment on this, and they talked about how many Republicans, or people across the aisle actually, were condemning everything that was said. Let's take a look at this.
Fallout is growing after a Politico investigation revealed offensive and vile text messages exchanged in a private Young Republicans group chat. The report details racist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic language shared among about a dozen members over several months. To talk more about what the messages reveal and how party leaders are responding, we're joined now by Politico reporter Emily No, who broke the story. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So we have screenshots of these messages in question based on your reporting. Some of what's on screen here includes racist and anti-Semitic slurs, homophobic, sexist messages. There's talk of putting political opponents in gas chambers, threats of rape and violence. This is just a glimpse of what you uncovered across thousands of Telegram messages. I understand several of the people involved have already lost their jobs. What more can you tell us about the fallout and who's been affected?
Right, the fallout has been vast. The story and our reporting has reverberated widely across the nation. By our most recent count, we have 8 of the 12 members of this chat that, as you said, is just filled with racist epithets and gay slurs and references to violence, are out of their jobs. When we started our reporting, started making the calls after laying out some of these messages in our drafts, 2 preemptively were fired from their jobs or had a job offer rescinded. And pretty soon after we published, we saw that others lost their jobs too.
And the response has reached the highest levels, to include the White House. Here's what the Vice President JD Vance said about this yesterday.
Now, one thing I do want to say is I think that people who, say bad things, whatever, I don't think that if you say bad things, you lose the right to a job. But I'll say this, it's twofold. First of all, especially if you're racist or sexist, America is so diverse at this point that unless you want to go to Boondock Hicktown, Alabama, it makes sense to have trouble finding people who are willing to hire you, or having trouble finding people who are willing to actually work with you in your job position. You're going to have trouble getting along with people. It's just a fact of life. And so it makes sense to have job offers rescinded if you're a racist person. I think additionally, when you're in a political position, that adds an entirely different dimension of things, because if you're in a political position, you have the ability to affect, if not create, government policy. If you're a racist person inside of a government position, that's dangerous, because then you can, or likely will, use the power that you have to try to negatively affect members of demographics that you do not like. And obviously that's bad. I don't think I have to explain why that's bad. So, when it comes to, the person lost their job, well, you've got to kind of look at the context of this. In this context, I think it's entirely appropriate, especially these people. I believe they had political jobs, so entirely appropriate for these people to lose their jobs. Maybe they could become janitors or something. I don't know. Politics should not be a welcome home for racists.
We saw that others lost their jobs too.
And the response has reached the highest levels, to include the White House. Here's what the Vice President JD Vance said about this yesterday.
The reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. That's what kids do. And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives.
So people can...
Well, see, I don't know how much context is included in that. I don't really feel like looking up, everything that JD Vance had to say there. I may look it up another time, because I do think that might actually be worth a video in the future if I have the time to make one. But if you didn't see the full context of everything, I understand. But if you did, it's very clear that they weren't just joking there, right? There's some things that seem to be quite serious, and they weren't framed as jokes at all. So to say that these are just some young kids who were being dumb, but by the way, they're not much younger than JD Vance himself. is quite the disingenuous thing to say.
Can read your reporting and decide for themselves if these were kids telling stupid jokes. But who were the people in this chat, and what positions did they hold within Young Republicans?
Right, so this is a slate of Young Republican Club leaders who were in positions of power and influence. By Young Republicans, we're not talking about kids here. We're talking about a membership that is as old as 40. So by and large, could be the vice president's peers and peers to a lot of folks who are working on the Hill in Congress. We had top aides to New York state legislatures. We had a sitting state senator from Vermont, and we just had folks who were poised to be the next generation of Republican leaders. And we positioned our story and our reporting as this is how Young Republicans are talking when they don't think anyone is listening. This is how they talk in private. This is the speech of Republicans today who are going to be the leaders of the party tomorrow.
No, you got to remember this was this was an echo chamber of losers, right? A lot of these people were complaining about how they lost, local races, and the people that they were making, whether serious or otherwise, the people they were making threats against were the Republicans who actually won, right? So I think that it's pretty disingenuous to mark this as, oh, this is how Republicans speak today. I mean, sure, that's like saying the Democrats are running around saying, globalized intifada, which they do, but I don't think that globalized intifada is something that most Democrats support, right? It'd be disingenuous to attribute the most extreme Democratic statements that Democrats have made to Democrats as a whole. And I think this is what she's falling for here, or she's doing here. I don't know if it's falling for. She's probably doing it on purpose, but that's what she's doing here in this interview.
The speech of Republicans today who are going to be the leaders of the party tomorrow.
Some Republicans have condemned these messages outright. Others are trying to shift the focus, citing the leaked text from the Virginia Democratic Attorney General candidate Jay Jones, who appeared to threaten a Republican lawmaker. How are GOP leaders, for the most part, framing this moment?
So it varies, of course, but we see now, and it's to be expected in this political climate, a lot of congressional Democrats and New York Democrats, including Governor Kathy Hochul, who are seizing on this and capitalizing on this to use against their Republican rivals, including those who immediately condemned these text messages. But what's this latest set of remarks from Vice President JD Vance? I find that I'm asking now whether there is a sort of permission structure being established slowly and steadily to allow some of these Republican leaders to excuse this behavior, or at the very least question why Democrats aren't condemning similar vile language from their camp, particularly from Jones, as you say, in Virginia.
Tell me more about that. Based on your reporting and the conversations you've had connected to this investigative piece, to what extent has the current Trump era normalized or even emboldened the racist, homophobic, sexist language and attitudes among some young conservatives?
Right.
So we already know what she's going to say because we read the article. I am rolling my eyes in spirit.
These 2,900 pages of private Telegram chat messages, my colleague Jason Beefer and I didn't just report on what was in them, and I'll note that we read the entire thing, scoured the entire thing to make sure some of these epithets weren't one-offs and to see whether anyone was pushing back. That was not the case. These are jokes, dark humor, sort of a casual kind of cruelty that were repeated over and over again in a pattern.
So she's pitching them as jokes, is what it sounds like. I don't think it's even fair to be that charitable. They didn't seem like they were 100% joking to me. It's interesting that she framed them that way because if she was how she was also being like, oh, look, this is all Donald Trump's fault, kind of at the end of that article. But to diminish it, to diminish what they were saying is just jokes is not helpful, not good.
Sort of a casual kind of cruelty that were repeated over and over again in a pattern. And we put them in the context of what's happening now in the political climate where people are at each other's throats, where in social media, on podcasts, including very, very widely listened to, watched podcasts and very popular hosts, there's language is being echoed, it's being exemplified. They're not getting this from nowhere. And sort of it's been okay in some stratospheres when it really shouldn't be.
Emily No of Politico, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
I don't know how that's relevant, but this is very concerning for the right, and I do hope that, you know, if JD Vance hasn't condemned the statements, I hope that he does. But most importantly, I hope that Donald Trump condemns these statements, because they're very extreme, they're very inappropriate, they're very they're just not good, and I would like reassurance that the Republican Party is not leaning into the direction of sort of being this party that emboldens racists and enables them to be part of Republican leadership all across the country. So I think that we really do need a statement that sort of says, hey, you know, this is not something that we're trying to encourage or support here.